So this morning I received an email, or actually it wasn't exactly this morning, but I got to it this morning, an email from one of my subscribers. This is Randy, and let me see if I can bring it up here. Okay. Hi, Blue Ridge Silverhound. I appreciate all of your videos. I've learned a lot from what you've had to say, especially when it comes to grading coins. Thank you, sir. I have kind of an issue, and it's made me kind of tired of submitting coins. I submit coins to PCGS. I usually send one submission every month for about 10 to 20 coins. My last submission was for 12 coins. They were all pennies. And I submitted six 1965 Lincoln cents, Lincoln pennies. And I also submitted six 1959D Lincoln pennies. And they all came back either mid-state 64 or 65. As you know, these coins are not worth anything at that grade level. What am I doing wrong? I feel like I'm finding coins that are as good as what you are reviewing on your channel, and that is why I'm sending it. My last submission from last month was for 15 1964 Lincoln pennies, and those also came back in the same fashion. Please help me understand what I'm missing. All right. So it's ironic because this is not the first email that I've received of this manner where, some people have actually tried and attempted to submit coins, specifically moderns, because that's kind of like the hot, trend right now. It's because of all the press, not just from me, but there are other channels that are like, hey, if you found these coins, they're worth thousands of dollars, and it's like, oh, it's a 1998. So some of the more, I guess, valuable coins can be found from the 50s and 60s, and it could really get you down if you don't know what you're looking at. And he actually sent me a few photos of the coins that he submitted, and I could tell why some of the coins didn't grade as such. And I have a few examples, and I kept them all like kind of the same date. So I have not five 1956Ds here. What I'll do is I'll pick them up one at a time. And I pulled these out of BU rolls I've had assembled over the years, or have purchased and have subsequently already gone through. So some of these coins, I chose them specifically for the video because they're going to show various things that you and I will look at, and at that point you'll take into consideration, okay, is this a gradable coin, or is this something that's just a BU coin that's just going to stay in a roll or perhaps in a album, okay, for the rest of its life. And this first example is a 56D Lincoln wheat cent. And one of the biggest issues that have plagued these earlier cents, because of the environment that they're stored in, whether it's a dry environment or a very humid environment, is you're going to get some of these carbon spots. The graders are especially tough on these carbon spots because it wrecks the eye appeal for the most part of these coins. Now, the coin may look absolutely lustrous and beautiful. Like if I pulled this out of a roll of cents that I got at the bank, then, I feel like I would have been a winner, okay? Because it's like you don't find coins like this in circulation anymore. But this one came out of a BU roll, and it is plagued with a myriad of various carbon spots, which is, that's a reaction that copper has to any sort of moisture. It's not reversible. You can't scrub it off. You can't dip the coin. Of course, you dip the coin, you're introducing your copper cent to other types of moisture, whether it's acetone or some sort of dip or distilled water, it doesn't make any difference. It's really going to kill the coin's value. And while it may not show up right off the bat, it'll just take a little bit of time before those carbon spots develop into something that is undesirable. Now, this coin looks pretty good in comparison to the last example, but you're going to have some of these carbon streaks here on the right side field, which, the graders take into huge consideration the field areas for cleanliness. The absence of any sort of nicks or hits is absolutely important. The carbon spotting also equally important right here, which will determine the grade that a grader will give it. Another thing that they will look at is the overall strike. If a strike is pretty bad or pretty weak or deteriorated die, they also, believe it or not, take that into consideration too, regardless of how clean the coin looks. Like, let's say if a coin is absolutely absent of any sort of carbon spots, but you can't really see the definition of these lines in the wheat stock because they're so mushy, they're gonna kill the grade on that too, usually a point or two less. All right, so here's a 54D, which on face value looks absolutely spectacular. But you see here in this field area, you see some various little nicks, okay, and that's all as in some carbon spots. That's all as a result of one of two things, okay? Poor planchet quality, which was very prominent during its day. Vendors will come in and bring in these blank planchets, and then the method of manufacture and quality control from XYZ vendor to the mint, they're two different entities. So the mint is kind of, they're handcuffed to the quality of the planchets that's received to them, but you see some of these nicks in the field. You have a few carbon spots that also detract. You have this nasty carbon spot right on the N, which, that's a huge deal. In spite of the fact that the coin is well struck, those certain items will keep this coin graded in the 64, 65 region. It's pretty easy to see that carbon spots truly do play a huge role. Here's another decent looking coin. It's 55S. You got a carbon spot under Liberty, under the I and B. You have a scratch in the field here in front of Lincoln's chin. Okay, all in all, the coin looks fantastic. Again, this coin will never see a mint state 66 grade, and even in that grade, this coin is worth at the most $15. I've owned a few 66 graded 55S's, and they're as common as a much newer red Lincoln cent pulled out of change. But you have this carbon spot here inside the cup of the C. But aside from that, the coin looks fantastic. Okay, that's definitely an album piece. And let's see, I have one more 50s coin here. This is a 53D. Again, same issues with the carbon spotting. You have a little bit of nicks on Lincoln's profile on his bust right here, which is common during its time, okay? In order for a coin to be considered anything higher than a 65, you need absolute minimal distractions, okay? There are even times that they'll see like die cracks. Like if you get this die crack in Lincoln's skull here, which, it happens every so often with an internal die break, they'll see that as a distraction too, and they'll actually either keep the grade in line without consideration for a bump, or they'll drop it down a point or half a point. Maybe you might get this at a 65 plus, and that's going to kill the value of your coin. And there's the reverse. Albeit, the 55S's are well struck on a reverse without any weakness. Again, there's a bunch of different factors that play into an overall grade. So those are 50s Lincoln wheat cents, okay? And then what I have here are some, actually these are all 64s. So we're going to go up into the next decade. The thing that most plagues some of these 60s coins is absolutely horrible strikes. Oftentimes you'll see the letters "In God We Trust" kind of press into the rim, so that way they mold into one. It's unsightly, and actually the graders do take that into consideration. Another thing that really kind of makes a difference during this decade is the planchet quality. Okay, the planchets are already nicked up before the coins are even struck. On this example, you have, you know, a whole bunch of different little nicks on, especially right here on Lincoln's shoulder. That's like a huge hot spot for planchet nicks. Again, that's damage onto the planchet, the blank, before they're struck. And even though the coin is struck, it's not going to completely press out all of those little nicks. All right, so you want to also keep that into consideration. So there's, you know, scratches in the fields, carbon spots. Again, same things apply to here. Big old unsightly carbon spot there, that's irreversible. And, you know, there's just a smattering. This is where you get right here, the center steps of the memorial. And in this field is where you can see a huge amount of planchet defects. Okay, just little nicks. And you want to make sure that those areas are clean in order to have a coin that is considered a high grade. Again, same thing here. Okay, you have uneven planchet, carbon kind of like smears all over the place. You got a bunch of little nicks and stuff in the same hot points here as well. This bottom piece right here is, you know, it doesn't follow the luster like the rest of the coin, so that's a huge issue for planchet marks. I could go on. I have a few of them, but, you know, it's stuff that, you know, it's all going to be one the same. Again, you see all these little marks and carbon smears and all that stuff. I think my first real interaction with sending out and by the way, Randy did the right thing. Bulk submissions is definitely where it's at. I think you just sent out the wrong coins, bub. But my first interaction with sending out a huge order of 1960s Lincoln cents, it came back the same way. I had, I think, one coin that graded out as 66, but at that time it was only like a $30, $35 coin. So I think it was more of a learning experience. If I remember right, it was 33, 34 coins. Yeah, it was an expensive submission. One that I was lucky to get half my money back. And, you know, that's putting it lightly. But here's the last example, that's 64. You guys, you know, see what I'm talking about. So I hope, Randy, that this video kind of helps kind of point out a few of the hot key points that the graders are looking for. Again, graders are very stingy when it comes to their moderns. They don't want to give this false impression like, you know, certain coins have to grade out at a certain criteria, because at the same time they're kind of holding themselves accountable to the actual populations of these coins. They want you to continue to keep giving them coins, so they're not gonna inflate the pops, you know, and make these coins less valuable and less desirable because there's so many of them. They want you to continue to send them submissions because, you know, that's how they make money. It's not that they're intentionally trying to keep the pops low on these 2 decades. It's just the coins have a lot of issues, and they are sticklers. They have, in terms of post-1950 era coins like the moderns, they are incredibly fussy when it comes to the grading criteria. Okay, and that's it's not going to change, and all the more power to them, because, you know, if a coin's a grade out 67 or 67 plus and put it in that you know, $5,000 to $10,000 value range, okay, you got to make sure you send them a premier looking coin. So I hope this helps not only you, Randy, but everyone else on the channel that is considering sending out some of these earlier dated Lincoln cents. They are kind of a bear, but you know what? You send out a few and you treat them as kind of like educational pieces. If you're able to get like a 64, 65, 66 graded, and possibly buy one of those cheaper, inexpensive 67s online for around $50, then it'll give you something to work with. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Hit like and subscribe. Click the bell down below for instant notifications. And as always, you guys enjoy the hobby. Keep hunting, keep stacking. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.